Preparing for this conference and looking for moderators for our various sessions turned to be a very challenging task. I contacted many colleagues. Some of them were living and working abroad. Some of them who were still here were desperately looking for jobs abroad. Some could not join because they simply work in 2 or even 3 hospitals. Some and many were not in the mindset or in the mood to come to any educational activity. All of them shared with me the frustrations in their work conditions. We talked about the drug shortage. We talked about the unbearable financial aspect, not affording, for example, only a 3rd-class insurance for their families, not affording private universities or even private schools for their kids. All told me we deserve better. And indeed, does the Lebanese community that we serve deserve better? Dr. Bakhaj and everyone, I'm so happy to welcome you here today in this conference. So our problem as Lebanese anesthesiologists is twofold. The problem of the shortage in our workforce, and second, and very importantly, to ensure a decent work conditions for those anesthesiologists like us who chose or maybe were forced to stay here in Lebanon. Regarding the shortage of anesthesiologists, all hospitals have been really affected by this void. In Beirut, outside Beirut, governmental, private, or university hospital, everywhere. It is sad because in 2016, and according to the WFSA workforce map, Lebanon used to be one of the most comfortable in the MENA region in terms of number of anesthesiologists per population. We used to be 9.7 anesthesiologists per 100,000, which is a very good ratio. Today, we don't know how much exactly, but our estimate is at least 30% of our workforce has been lost. And definitely, we don't have any good estimate about the population in order to have this ratio. And this is a very serious matter, really. Not only the decrease in our workforce will limit the number of surgeries or procedures that are being performed, but our availability and the speed of our response to the critically ill and to maternity patients may be slower, or even worse, it can become second-rate. And also, and equally important, the well-being of those anesthesiologists who are working, and mostly in the regions, working in 2 or 3 hospitals in very bad work conditions is also certainly compromised. In Lebanon, few outside our profession truly understand what we do. This is not your case, Dr. Bakhaj. You are a surgeon and you understand what anesthesiologists do. We know how hard you are working in order to ameliorate the conditions of work of all physicians. But we anesthesiologists would definitely deserve more. We need your support to ensure that those anesthesiologists who remain in their motherland can do it with dignity, can continue with dignity. اليوم طبيب البنج بلبنان كلنا بنعرف حقوقه مهضومة. في كتير مستشفيات هلا بالوقت الحالي عم بيعملوا ديلز، عم بيعملوا لمسمز لحتى يمشوا الشغل. اكيد بدهم يبدوا مصالحهم، بعدين بيبدوا مصالح الجراح، وبالاخر بيطلع على الطبيب البنج من الجمل اذنه. اكيد ما في احترام للكود اللي هو حقنا. بخلال هذا السياق انا بقول انه نحن هذا الاس اي بورد من كم شهر بعثنا للجنه التعرفه بالال او بي، طلبوا منا اعاده النظر بالكود، اكيد بعثناهم. هي مش اول مره عم نبعث، بس للاسف لحد هلا ما في شيء تغير. اليوم نحن بنطلب منك دكتور بخاش، انت صديق الانستيزيولوجيست، بدنا نطلب منك انه يمكن تبعت كتاب للجان الطبيه لاداره المستشفيات لحتى يصير في عن جد ينعطى الطبيب البنج حقه. واكيد بالنسبه للال او بي مع لجنه التعريفه لحتى بركي يصير في تعجيل بتطبيق القرارات اللي نحن البروبوزل اللي نحن بعتناه. بدي احكي كمان اليوم عن البري اوب كونسلت. دكتور ابو شرف بال 2019 هو بعت كتاب للمستشفيات وبيذكرهم انه طبيب البنج هو مثل حياة الطبيب، بحق له انه يكون عنده هاي بري اوب كونسلت. مشيت شوي بالاول، بس هلا most of the hospitals اكيد ما عم بيطبقوا هذا الموضوع. وبالاخير انا بعرف انه حضرتك عم تشتغل لحتى ال 50% تبع الفريش دارس تكون اكثر، ويمكن بالاشهر الجايه تكون 75 وبركي 100%. انا بدي اطلب منك اليوم انه حكيم البنج مثله مثل حياة الحكيم بدها توصل له حقوقه. My dear friends and colleagues, tomorrow we will be celebrating World Anesthesia Day, commemorating the first successful demonstration of ether anesthesia in 1846, one of the most significant events in the history of medicine. In this day, we Lebanese anesthesiologists, we certainly deserve a special treat. I salute each and every one of you for your resilience, for your hard work, and for your courage and your commitment to our country and to our profession, despite the daily challenges. But remember, we are not alone. We can lean on our roots, and our roots are spread everywhere in the world. We have contacted our colleagues as speakers in this conference. All were very enthusiastic to join. And remember, we also have friends, and our friends are everywhere in the world. I can cite here the wonderful people from the SFAR, the Société Française d'Anesthésie et de Réanimation. They were really very helpful with us, the WFSA, the PAFSA. And remember also, this moment in time will not last forever. Well, this is a crazy word, we know, but in Lebanon, things are much more crazier. But what we can do is to adapt, to be resilient, and to be flexible. And as the phoenix that rises from the ashes, we will rise again, stronger, smarter, and more powerful, and definitely determined to continue our mission of excellence. My dear friends and colleagues, your LSA board is working diligently on implementing a nice working plan for the coming years that is with some pillars to provide educational activity for all, to promote high quality safety and care standards, to strengthen our collaborations with national and international societies and also the diaspora, and most importantly, to advocate for our well-being and to promote our interest within the LOP and other forums. And during the past 6 months, we have provided many activities along this line. We promise you to put all our efforts into making the LSA a beacon of light and hope for the profession and for Lebanon. Please, my friends of LSA board, can you stand up? Dr. Samia Jbara, Dr. Violette Karam, Dr. Hanan Barakat, Dr. Jean-Claude Najem, Dr. Karine Zanni, Dr. Atif Ali, Dr. Jean-Claude Stefan, and we have missing here Dr. Naji Abu Jalat and Jose Abu Ghassan. Thank you very much for all your efforts. I will end by thanking the scientific committee for putting together this nice program, our speakers, our moderators. I will not forget our generous sponsors for supporting this meeting, and Infomed for their great organization skills. Please enjoy the conference. Thank you. Now I have the chance to present a great person, very well known among our diaspora, Dr. Walid Ahmar. Dr. Ahmar is the president of the International Lebanese Medical Association, ILMA. Dr. Ahmar is a famous interventional cardiologist working in Melbourne, Australia. Dr. Ahmar was really welcoming to the idea of this meeting, and he did his best and put all his efforts to help us contacting our colleagues abroad. Welcome, Dr. Ahmar.
Thank you. It is a privilege and honor to be with you today. Firstly, I want to thank you, Dr. Randa Abirad, the president of the Lebanese Society of Anesthesiologists, and her amazing organizing committee, who who have worked tirelessly in bringing this Congress to fruition. I want to acknowledge Dr. Yusuf Bakhosh, the President of the Lebanese Order of Physicians. A warm welcome extended to all of you and to all our International Lebanese Medical Association speakers at this Congress and to our colleagues throughout the world. The International Lebanese Medical Association, or ILMA, is a non-political, non-denominational association that is comprised of national medical associations of Lebanese heritage throughout the world. ILMA was established 10 years ago, and we are registered as an NGO in Lebanon. We have over 30 member countries that comprise ILMA, and we are growing. One of ILMA's major objectives is to collaborate with you, our medical colleagues in Lebanon, in scientific meetings such as this LSA conference. We want to partner with you to advance our knowledge base and to establish collaborative medical partnerships academically, educationally, and in research. We want to foster and promote partnerships that are mutually beneficial and rewarding. We can all learn from each other in multiple ways. ILMA wants to bring the best of the international world of medicine to Lebanon. It is truly inspiring and overwhelming to know that we have so many talented health professionals of Lebanese heritage, not only throughout the world, but also, and most importantly, within Lebanon. We have been conducting educational webinars with the LOP, in particular with the current president, Dr. Yusuf Bakhosh, throughout 2021 and early 2022. This has led to a fantastic collaboration of our ILMA physicians and the doctors both within Lebanon and outside. Furthermore, I'm excited that we will collaborate to have a joint ILMA LOP Congress in Beirut, hopefully in July 2023, whereby health professionals from all specialties throughout the world can converge in Lebanon and partner with you, our Lebanese colleagues. In medicine, enhancing knowledge base is critical, not only for our continued development as physicians, but most importantly, in delivering the best level of care to our patients. The hardship that is being endured by our Lebanese health colleagues and the Lebanese population is well known, and ILMA is trying all it can to help you. We have not forgotten you. We have and we will continue to donate medical equipment, medicines, food, and clothing from all our ILMA members throughout the world to Lebanon. We will continue to stand with you, our Lebanese brothers and sisters. The COVID-19 pandemic affected scientific meetings throughout the world and in Lebanon. So it is exciting to have this Congress, and I wish Dr. Vanda Abirad and the LSA a successful and rewarding conference. It is truly an honor to know the world-class presenters from Lebanon and internationally that will be presenting over the next 2 days. It is a great honor for ILMA to be a partner with the LSA at this Congress, and I hope to continue our collaboration. May you all enjoy and gain beneficial knowledge from all the sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmer. And now, Naibna, on behalf of all anesthesiologists, I would really like to thank you for all your work, for all physicians. بس تذكرنا دايما نحن الانستيزيولوجيست. أهلا وسهلا فيك.
صباح النور. ميرسي دكتورة فاندا، وأنا بدي أتشكر دكتورة فاندا وكل البورد على هالتنظيم الحلو، وخاصة بهيدي الأوضاع، وكلنا بنعرف قديش الوضع صعب لنقدر يكون في عنا سبونسور شيب لهيك مؤتمرات. وتاني شغلة، أنا مجبور إنه أكون صديق للجمعية إذا بدي إنه مريض يكون نايم وأقدر أعمل عمليتي. دكتورة فاندا ضوت على نقطتين بنعرف إنه كتير مهمين بالنسبة للمجتمع الطبي ولا اختصاصكم. أول واحد هو قيمة الرموز الطبية بشكل عام. بالمجلس السابق صار في شغل جبار، يعني على فترة 2 لجنة التعريفات مع دكتور يوسف حداد اللي مع الأسف ترك لبنان مثل كثير من الزملاء، عملوا شغل وطوروا قيمة الرموز الطبية، وأكيد منا قيمة الرموز، لأنه وانس نحن منعلي الكي تبع الجراحة اوتوماتيكما تبع الانستيزي بده يتبع. الأمر منه بإيدنا نحن كنقابة، لأنه هيدا الكتاب الجديد والرموز الجديدة صارت بعهدة وزارة الصحة والضمان الاجتماعي. واليوم كلنا بنعرف عدم وجود الملاءة المالية، عدم وجود القدرة واللجنة اللي بدها تشتغل عليها. يعني بعتقد انه هيدا الموضوع مش رح ينحل الا ما نبلش هيك نرجع يتعافى البلد ونرجع نفوت بتعافي لمشكلة لبنان ككل. ولكن الملف موجود، عم نتابعه، بس بعتقد بدنا نشوف التوقيت تبعه، اي متى التوقيت المناسب لحتى نمشي فيه. هلا فيما يخص التعاون والاجتماعات اللي صارت مع الجهات الضامنه الخاصه البرايفت انشورنس، اكيد في اشخاص موجودين بالصاله كمان كانوا بالاجتماعات اللي عملناها. اكيد هيدا صراع بين الاطباء وبين الجهات الضامنه ان كانت الرسميه او الخاصه، بس مبدئيا رح نبلش سنه 2023 مع 75% 75%. بيوعدونا بالمية بآخر السنة، ولكن رح نحاول نحصل عليها قبل. الأهم من هيك، الأهم إنه بالاتفاق اللي بدنا نعمله رح يكون واضح إنه ضمن 90 يوم لازم الانشورنس تدفع. لأنه مثلا نحن بلشنا على الفريش دولار بأكتوبر 2021، في كتير عمليات انعملت بعد لهلا من سنة ما انقبضت. يعني في هيدي الكلوز اللي بدها تنحط، نجبر الانشورنس انه ضمن 3 اشهر تدفع. وعم نحاول نفكر اذا فينا ندفع دغري للحكيم، يعني كيف وزارة الصحة تدفع دغري على حساب الحكيم، بس كمان بما انه فريش دولار هيدا رح يخلق فري دو فيرمان، يمكن ما تكون كمان هلا وقتها مناسب لانه البنك بده يستفيد منها. والشغله الثانيه الاهم، النقابه عم تحاول تلعب دورها كنقابه، يعني انا طالب من كل البرايفت انشورنس انه الاكسل شيت اللي هن بيعتمدوا عليه لحتى يدفعوا اتعاب الحكيم، هودي يبعثوا لنا اياهم على النقابه، لحتى نلحق نحن يكون عندنا امكانيه انه نراقب فصل الاتعاب. يعني حيلا حكيم، هلا اكيد هذا بده تحضير وشغل، بس حيلا حكيم فيه يجي على النقابه هيدي الفكره، وبيقدر بكبسه زر يشوف قديش عنده، قديش له هو بالانشورنس، عنده مصاري، اذا اندفعت ولا ما اندفعت، وساعتها النقابه فيها تدق للانشورنس وتقول له مثلا انتم تخطيتوا ال3 اشهر، عملوا معروف مثلا فيها الاتعاب ما اندفعت. بقى هودي عم ينشغل عليهم. العلاقه منيحه مع الانشورنس لانه هن معوزيننا لنشتغل ونحن كمان معوزينهم لحتى نستمر. مش لازم نعتبرهم كخصوم، ولكن لازم اثنيناتنا سوا نقدر نشتغل مثل مع الجهات الضامنة الرسمية لحتى كلنا سوا نرجع نعيد لبنان مستشفى الشرق الأوسط. هلأ رح نوصل للكلمة الرسمية. زميلاتي وزملائي الأعزاء، أيها الحفل الكريم، يسرني ويشرفني أن أكون معكم اليوم في حفل افتتاح هذا المؤتمر. فباسمي وباسم أعضاء مجلس نقابة أطباء لبنان في بيروت، لكم أحر التمنيات بنجاح مؤتمركم هذا، ونحن من الداعمين الدائمين والطبيعيين لهكذا مؤتمرات علمية. كلنا فخر بانعقاد هذا المؤتمر في هذا الظرف العصيب، وفي ظل أزمات يعاني منها القطاع الصحي والمجتمع الطبي على حد سواء، لا سيما بعد هجرة العديد من زملائنا بسبب الأزمات الاقتصادية والمعيشية والصحية وحجز أموالهم في المصارف من دون أي مسوغ شرعي أو حق، وبالتالي دفعهم إلى هجرة قسرية أو طوعية أقل ما يقال فيها إن هجرة أصحاب الاختصاصات التي يعاني القطاع من نقصان في أطبائها. ورغم أن اختصاصكم الذي هو تحضير المريض للجراحة من خلال تزويده بجرعة اللازمة من البنج، وهذا ما يجعل منكم الجندي المجهول الذي يأخذ على عاتقه مخاطر طبية محتملة تتداركونها بالعلم والمعرفة وتؤسسون لعمل جراحي هادئ ومضمون النتائج أصابه ما أصاب سائر الاختصاصات، فإنكم عقدتم هذا المؤتمر متكلين على مبادرتكم الفردية لتسليط الضوء على مسائل تتعلق بآخر المستجدات في عالمكم الطبي والعلمي، وهي مستجدات انبثقت عن دراسات معمقة في هذا المجال وأصبحت تشكل بعداً لا يستهان به في ظل مجتمع يشهد تطورات متسارعة دخلت على خطها التكنولوجيا الحديثة وجعلت منها عنوانا لمستقبل الجراحة والطب. وهنا أنتم اليوم تواكبونه بحضور مميز لاختصاصيين يتبادلون الخبرات والتجارب، إضافة إلى الاطلاع على آخر التقنيات العلمية وأحدثها. وطالما عودتنا هذه الجمعية بفضل القيمين عليها الذين يولون للعلم والثقافة كل اهتمام ومتابعة. زملائي، نحن معنيون ليس فقط بشؤوننا وبهمومنا المهنية، بل ومن باب المسؤولية أيضاً بأوضاع المريض وخصوصيته والشعور بوضعه ووجعه التزاماً بآدابنا الطبية وانطلاقاً من القسم الذي أقسمناه جميعاً، ولنكن على ثقة بأننا نحقق المعجزات في حال كنا جسماً واحداً برأس واحد، جسم يمد يده إلى سائر القطاعات الطبية والتمريضية. فرسالتنا نحن الأطباء تتميز عن سائر المهن الحرة بارتباطنا الإنساني الفريد مع مرضانا. وفي الختام أتوجه بالشكر لكل من ساهم في تنظيم هذا المؤتمر، واثقا بأنكم ستخرجون بتوصيات تعود بالمنفعة للطبيب والمريض في آن معا. كما أشكر الحضور وكل المشاركين. عشتم، عاش لبنان، عاشت النقابة، وعاشت الجمعية اللبنانية للتخدير والإنعاش. وإن شاء الله السنة الجاي نعمل هذا المؤتمر ببيت الطبيب. يعطيكم العافية.
Thank you, Dr. Bakhaj. Now I have the chance to introduce our keynote speaker for the August 4 lecture, Dr. Wayne Morris. Dr. Morris is the president of the World Federation of Societies of Anesthesiologists, WFSA. He is a practicing anesthesiologist in Christchurch, New Zealand. Just to inform you that the WFSA, they were very generous with us as they accepted to waive the outstanding contributions fees from the previous years. هلا أكيد بحبونا، بس in addition, we are much proud because we have two Lebanese colleagues with their board and their council. Dr. Patricia Yazbek from Hôtel Dieu de France as a council member, and Dr. Walid Haber, he is a Lebanese anesthesiologist working in Switzerland. Thank you very much for your help. So Dr. Morris is currently in Bolivia, so different time zone. He sent us a recorded lecture, and the theme is Emerging from Crisis, Anesthesiologists as Leaders. Thank you.
For me to speak at your Congress. I am sorry I cannot be with you in person. I am honoured to be delivering the August the 4th Memorial Lecture. I'll just share my slides. I've entitled this lecture, Emerging from Crisis, Anesthesiologists as Leaders. Greetings from my country, New Zealand. I live in the city of Christchurch, which is on the east coast of the South Island. New Zealand is a small country in the Southwest Pacific Ocean, and we have a population of about 5 million people for the entire country. Greetings also from the WFSA leadership team, the WFSA board. I'd like to introduce them to you. On the left is Carolina Haylock-Law from Honduras. Then we've got Professor Walid Habre from Switzerland, and he will be well known to many of you. Then Professor Adrian Gell, who was the president until July when I took over. In the back we have Professor Daniela Filipescu from Romania. Then Dr. Bisola Onijinabembe from Nigeria, and I'm at the end. Absent from this photo are Professor Davy Cheng from China and Dr. Mauricio Vasco from Colombia. The World Federation of Societies of Anesthesiologists, the WFSA, was founded in 1955. We currently have 135 member societies, and we represent 150 countries worldwide. The Lebanese Society of Anesthesiologists is a highly valued member of the WFSA. We have an official liaison role with the World Health Organization, and this means that we can speak on your behalf and behalf of all anesthesiologists around the world at official WHO meetings. During this lecture, I'm going to ask the question, what is a crisis? And then I'm going to look at leadership, especially as this relates to anesthesiologists. I'm going to look at the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic for our specialty and for healthcare worldwide. And then I'll look at the global priorities after the pandemic. I think these fall into two main areas: continue to advocate for our patients and also continue to develop a well-trained and resilient workforce. And finally, I'm going to ask the question, is the COVID-19 pandemic or any other crisis an opportunity to build back better? The Oxford Dictionary of English defines a crisis as a time of intense difficulty or danger. It also says it's a time when a difficult or important decision must be made. And I'm sure that many of you will identify with this definition. The crises that we have seen in recent years have been difficult and dangerous, and they have required difficult and important decisions, both from a personal point of view and a professional point of view. In the early 60s, John F. Kennedy said these words: when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. So the word danger reappears here. But the other word that I think is really important is opportunity. So crises can present opportunities. And I think that's the way that we need to be thinking at the current time. I'd like to just pause for a second or two to think about the terrible tragedy that occurred on the 4th of August, 2020. This tragedy, this crisis, obviously had profound effects on the city of Beirut, but also your country, and you personally and professionally. I'm also aware that you have also been suffering through an economic crisis in recent times. My city, Christchurch, has also had some difficulties during the last decade. In 2011, we suffered a series of earthquakes. In an earthquake in February 2011, 185 people were killed and large areas of the central city were destroyed. And then, of course, for the world, we've had the COVID-19 pandemic. And I don't think any of us at the start of the pandemic realised what a big thing it was going to be. We are hopefully now emerging from the pandemic, and we have yet to assess what the full impact of this pandemic has been. Turning to leadership and thinking about it in the anesthesiology context. Leadership used to be seen as something that was hierarchy-based, with somebody at the top giving orders. Leaders were thought to be the people with charisma. So leadership was seen as being something that was done by people with the correct personality traits, the personality traits. It was innate to a few, so people were born leaders. And it's also was considered touchy-feely. What has been here is that it was difficult to measure. It was something that was difficult to define. But now I think most of us would subscribe to a much more outdated view of leadership. Leadership depends on relationships, depends on being able to work in a team. There is action and accountability, but there are many other words that are important now, such as facilitation and collaboration. We don't just have born leaders. Leadership skills can be developed, they're not just innate. Can we expect it from everyone? Everybody can be a leader in the right context. And leadership can be measured. It can be studied scientifically. In an editorial in this year's Anesthesia and Analgesia, entitled Anesthesiologists as Health System Leaders, Why It Works, the authors discussed some of the skills that are shared by anesthesiologists and the leaders of healthcare companies, the chief executive officers. And they concluded that anesthesiologists make the best CEOs of healthcare companies. They talked about some of the skills that are important for both our specialty and also leadership. These skills include teamwork, collaboration, the ability to multitask, the ability to solve problems, often when these problems are presenting in a time-critical way. They said that anesthesiologists are also precise decision makers, another skill that is important in leadership. But very importantly, anesthesiologists are good at system-level thinking. They can think about the big picture and they understand the relationships between different parts of the system. Many anesthesiologists took important leadership roles during the COVID-19 pandemic, both clinical roles and non-clinical roles. This is from the front page of Time, and it shows Dr. Francesco Mincesi from Italy. And he was obviously had an important role as a clinician during the crisis. And it actually helped to, this photo helped put anesthesiology on a different profile because of the pandemic. So many more people understood that anesthesiologists were playing an important role during the pandemic. What has been the impact of the pandemic? Well, as I said before, we don't fully understand what the impact has been and what it is going to be during the next decade or so. This graphic comes from the United Nations. The UN says that more than 500 million people have been infected worldwide. This has led to 15 million deaths. Essential health services have been disrupted in the vast majority of countries. And very importantly, progress on universal health coverage has been halted. And this is very important for us as anesthesiologists because progress on improving, strengthening anesthesiology and provision of surgical care has largely taken a back seat because resources have been diverted towards management of the pandemic. Other things on this graphic are that there has been a reduction in the global life expectancy. Immunisation coverage has gone down. And here, obviously, we're talking about immunisation of non-COVID infectious disease. There has been an increase in anxiety and depression. And there have also been increased deaths from non-COVID infectious diseases such as tuberculosis and malaria. Turning to surgery in more detail, we all know that there has been a reduction in the amount of surgery done in many of our hospitals. This has resulted in delayed or no surgical care for many of our patients. We are now seeing a large backlog of cases. And this large backlog is likely to be a huge problem during the years to come. In 2020, the COVID Surge Collaboration did some modelling, and they looked at just 12 weeks of COVID disruption. They found that 24 million operations were either postponed or cancelled. And from their modelling, they found that it would take 45 weeks to clear the backlog. This modelling assumed that the surgical systems will be able to be, their capacity would be increased by 20% to help clear the backlog. Now, this is probably unlikely. The other important thing about this finding is that, of course, we haven't just had 12 weeks of COVID disruption, we've had over 2 years of COVID disruption. I was talking to one of the investigators in this COVID Surge Collaboration just a few weeks ago, and she says that the backlog is now expected to be huge, and they will be releasing some modelling in the near future. But we are probably not going to see the backlog being cleared in the foreseeable future. The other thing that's been very important, a very important impact for us has been the effect on well-being, not just for anaesthesiologists, but other health workers. The British Medical Association produced a report in 2022, just a few months ago, entitled "The Impact of the Pandemic on the Medical Profession." The report talked about the threat to physical health, but also stressed the importance of the negative impact on mental health and emotional well-being. And again, it's going to take time to fully understand how big this impact has been. The World Health Organization in 2021 estimated that over 115,000 health workers had died during the first 18 months of the pandemic. So as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, what are the important things that we need to think about as leaders of an organisation like the WFSA? I think a very important theme of this talk is that we have to think about our core purpose. This applies to us as individual anaesthesiologists, as well as to us as members of an organisation. So what is our mission? The WFSA's mission is uniting and empowering anaesthesiologists around the world to improve patient care. So our patients need to be central to our mission and also our priorities. With this mission in mind, I think there are two very important priorities, and these haven't changed a lot from our priorities before the COVID-19 pandemic. The first priority is that we need to continue to advocate for our patients and access to safe anaesthesia and surgical care. The second thing is that we need to continue to develop a well-trained and resilient workforce. So the first priority is advocating for our patients. In 2015, the Lancet Commission on Global Surgery found that 5 billion people out of the world's 7 billion people do not have access to safe anaesthesia and surgical care when needed. This report helped to put anaesthesia and surgical care on the global health agenda. And it was also a finding that was shocking to many people, because up until this point, there were many people involved in global health that did not understand the contribution of anaesthesia and surgical care to overall healthcare provision. Soon after the Lancet Commission report, the World Health Assembly passed World Health WHA 68.15, entitled Strengthening Emergency and Essential Surgical Care and Anaesthesia as a Component of Universal Health Coverage. And this was the first time that anaesthesia and surgical care had been mentioned in this way in a World Health Assembly resolution. This was a call to action by member states. It was a promise by member states, and it was universally or unanimously agreed by them. But then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic came along, and progress on this resolution has been halted. So we need to talk about the importance of strengthening emergency and essential surgical care and anaesthesia. It's something that is a high priority in the post-COVID pandemic world. So we need to remind governments of their promise, the promise that they made in 2015. The second priority is to develop a well-trained and resilient workforce. I mention resilience here because we have seen that there have been issues relating to health worker well-being as a result of this pandemic. So one thing that we need to be thinking more about is how do we protect our workforce? How do we support people that have well-being problems after a crisis? The WFSA Global Anaesthesia Workforce Survey was done before the COVID-19 pandemic, and it showed massive disparities in the numbers of anaesthesiologists worldwide. The scale at the top shows the density of physician anaesthesia providers or anaesthesiologists per 100,000 population. So the number of providers per 100,000 population. The red represents less than 1 per 100,000. The dark green represents more than 20 per 100,000. And we can see that there are many countries in the world, especially those in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia, where there are incredibly low numbers of anaesthesiologists. These countries also have, not surprisingly, real difficulty when it comes to providing safe surgical care and anaesthesia. So we need to be telling governments, we need to be talking to decision makers about these disparities. Building the workforce is complicated. The one thing that's important from the WFSA's point of view is to be developing and also supporting leaders and teachers. So leaders and teachers are the ones that set local priorities. They're the ones that find local solutions to local problems. And they're the ones that are at the table when workforce planning happens. And then they're also the ones that are helping to train new, safe anaesthesia providers. The WFSA has a number of programs which are designed to improve the knowledge and skills of anaesthesiologists, as well as break down professional barriers and promote leadership. So these sorts of programs include fellowships, scholarships, and short courses such as the Safe Obstetric Anaesthesia course, the Safe Pediatric Anaesthesia course, Essential Pain Management, and the VAST Simulation course. WFSA also provides educational resources such as Anaesthesia Tutorial of the Week. And I think increasingly we're going to be developing curriculum resources that can be used by our member societies to help train new providers. I've mentioned member societies a number of times now, and I think member societies are really key. They are central to solving some of the problems that we have in the global anaesthesia world. It's really important that anaesthesiology's member societies are empowered and are able to engage in national planning and also lead on workforce development. So they need to be at the table with the decision makers, with the governments, and with other doctors and healthcare workers when decisions are made about workforce development and resource allocation. The WFSA is its member societies. We are a federation and we are an amazing network of volunteers. But we don't want to think about the WFSA as being in one corner and member societies being in the other. We are our member societies. There is an opportunity in this post-COVID world to make things better. In a Lancet editorial last year, the authors asked this question: will the COVID-19 crisis catalyse universal health reforms? They stated that the pandemic has brought attention to deep healthcare inequalities. And they also made the interesting observation that healthcare reforms in the past have often followed crises. They cited my country, New Zealand, which developed comprehensive free healthcare at the end of the 1930s after the Great Depression. They also cited Britain, which developed the National Health Service after World War II. And then Rwanda developed universal health reforms after the genocide in the early 90s, from 1994. So there is an opportunity after this worldwide health crisis to learn lessons from the crisis and to build back better, to develop comprehensive and resilient health systems. And by this I mean systems that are able to cope with infectious pandemics and also all the other health problems that continue to need management when a pandemic happens. So we need comprehensive health systems that cover, that are resourced to provide healthcare for the whole range of health problems. We also need resilient health systems that continue to function when the going is difficult, and also systems that protect the health workers that work in them. UNICEF has this statement on its website, and it's entitled, "Why We Need a Global Response to COVID-19. The statement reads, "There is a choice. The world of the next 10 years can be one of greater justice, abundance, and dignity. Or it can be one of greater conflict, insecurity, and poverty. There is a choice." Here are the key points from this lecture. A crisis presents dangers and opportunities. We have the opportunity now to build back better, to do things in a different way. Anesthesiologists have many of the skills that are required to be good leaders. It's important that we identify those skills and look to lead when appropriate. The full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is unknown, but we know that there has been a big impact in many areas of healthcare. We know there is a huge backlog of surgical cases, and we know there are big issues with health worker wellbeing. We need to go back to our mission when deciding on priorities after a crisis. For the WFSA, it's key that we focus on our patients, our surgical patients, and also on our workforce. And we have an opportunity to work together to develop more comprehensive and resilient health systems. It's great that we're getting the opportunity now to meet face to face as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. The next World Congress of Anesthesiologists, the 18th WCA, is in Singapore, and it's in less than 18 months. This conference will be a hybrid meeting. I hope that many of you will be able to go to Singapore so that we can see each other face to face, but there will also be an opportunity to attend virtually. The theme of the meeting is Together We Can. And this is a very appropriate way of ending this lecture. Thank you very much, and I hope the rest of your meeting goes very well.
Very wise words and nice message of hope. Thank you all for attending this opening ceremony. Thank you, President Bakhash, and thank you, Dr. Ahmar, President of the ILMA. Dear colleagues, نحن عنا break للساعة 11. Go grab some coffee and come back. At 11 sharp, we will continue, but we will have a larger break at 1 for the lunch. Thank you.